Hey guys, thanks for listening to Kinda Dating, the comedy dating podcast where influential guests and I break down the dating world and try to figure out why the do we all have commitment issues. Today's topic is how to be loved. Let's do this. Hey Kinda Daters, I'm Natasha Chandale. You're listening to Kinda Dating. We have such a good episode for you today. Aisha's not here, so you're stuck with just me. But if you do like what you hear today, please remember to screenshot the episode, tag us, and tell us what you thought of it. We are also, reliant on word of mouth. So please tell your friends about the podcast and subscribe to it wherever you get it. And leave us a 5-star rating or review. We're also on social media. I'm at Kinda Dating across the board. That's the show, actually. I am at Natasha Chandale on Instagram and Facebook, Natasha.Chandale on TikTok. So fun thing, outside of the podcast, I am doing this interesting thing where I saw Bill Lawrence, who's this veteran showrunner, talking about a concept where he just tells himself that everything goes my way, as kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And he's behind all these hit shows like Spin City, Cougar Town, Ted Lasso, Shrinking, a whole ton. And I decided to try it out. So follow on TikTok because I'm doing a daily vlog of doing that affirmation and seeing if anything in my life actually changes. Will everything go my way? I don't know. We'll find out. So check it out on TikTok. But guys, let's get into it. I have a great episode for you. He's a return guest. He's a friend. You've heard him before. He's been here, and he's just grown since the last time we had him on the podcast. So excited to welcome back author and artist Humble the Poet. What's up?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
You're out in New York now?
Yes.
From Toronto?
Yeah, from Toronto originally, and then last 2 years in LA, and now here in New York.
Yeah. Well, how do you like it?
I love it. It is endlessly distracting in all the right and wrong ways. I love it.
Did I ever tell you I used to live in New York?
No, where'd you live?
Yeah, I used to live on Roosevelt Island.
Oh, okay.
The Upper East Side, yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
had I was there for many years. So I was there. Then I had a stint in Brooklyn Heights. I lived in Lower East Side for a while, and then tiny stint in Jamaica, Queens.
Oh, wow. Okay, you got all around.
Yeah.
You're near all the good food.
Oh yeah, my heart is in New York. My best friends are still there, so I love going back. It's amazing city.
Yeah, I'm loving it. So
but
good.
you visited. I'm sure you used to visit it a lot before you.
Yeah, no, I visited. I used to date someone that lived out here. I've done a lot, but I think this time, as I'm here with the intention of being here for long term and just being in non-touristy areas and being in Manhattan more than the boroughs and not having to take the train as much, it's been really interesting.
Yeah, that is the key. The key to New York is not doing the touristy things.
Yeah, and then realizing, it's not as busy or hectic, as chaotic as I assumed.
No, and the really fun stuff is in the not touristy areas, and the awesome food, good music, all that stuff is you just have to know. I used to. Oh man, I have such good memories of New York. Every time I'm out there, it's I would never be awake here till 2 a.m. anymore. But in New York, I just blink and it's 6 a.m. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, sometimes your plans start at 11 p.m. here. It's bananas.
They only start at 11 p.m. there.
Yeah.
I remember when I came to LA, I used to think it was so weird that, because in New York, we used to only go out actually at 12:30 is when you went out of the house. So when I first moved to LA, and I remember I went to a bar and I showed up at 12 or a lounge or whatever. And my friends were like, what did you just do? Everything's done. I was like, what? Yeah. And then I realized here you have to go out at 9 or 10 o'clock. It's a weird.
Yeah. People are home by 11:30 here in LA.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm happy that you're settled in over there. It's been a minute since you've been on the podcast. It's been a
Yes,
while. So we have to ask again because, status has changed, but like single or in a relationship?
single.
Okay, okay. So the New
Yeah,
York one didn't work out.
that one did not work out. Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay.
But you have a great book, which
Yes.
kind of lends itself. I wonder, like, was it okay? First, tell us about the book, and then was it therapy for yourself?
Um. Yeah. So I was exploring. I wanted to explore love while I was in that relationship, and I wanted to figure out. I was aware that I had it really good. I was in a good situation, but also in my life in general. Like my family situation was really good. My extended friend situation was good. My extended family situation was good. But I still felt like this deficiency with love. And I was trying to figure it out. And I was also trying to figure out why I wasn't doing love properly, why I was feeling like, even though I had all of this, I didn't feel grateful. I was meeting people who definitely didn't have what I had, and that still wasn't enough to make me feel grateful and understand that. So, you know, with all my books, they're the subjects and philosophies I selfishly want to explore and then, share what I learned. I'm the kid at the front of the class sharing their notes at the end. And I think through that journey, I started learning that, okay, so it wasn't a lack of love, it was a lack of my ability to receive. I had walls up that were created, that for protection. At least I thought they were protection. And you start to realize the fortress you build is also a prison you're stuck in. So it was part of that. And then as I went deeper with that, it helped me start understanding differences in attachment style, codependency, and all of that. And then I realized that the version of myself that was living the life that I had, I needed to end that relationship with them. And that required me to leave the relationship I was in, end certain friendships, kind of do a little bit of an overhaul in order for myself to realize the love that was always there in my life, especially realizing myself as a source of love, which is really the only source of love you actually need.
It's very true. And the book's name is How to Be Loved.
Yeah.
Right? And like the D is in parentheses. Like, so it's how to be love and how to be loved.
Yes.
Which I thought was so beautiful. But isn't it crazy? Like the second you start learning about these things like codependency and attachment style, and really not just in like a pop culture way, because I do think there's a lot of people who just kind of look at it for that, but really in a way of uh, personal growth, it can change your life. Like you just
Hmm.
I don't know, there's a quote that says like once your mind is expanded, it can't go back to
Hmm.
its old shape.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that's kind of what you found, like your mind was even more expanded than it was before.
Yeah, completely. And as I said, like I had to, you know, I think that the partner I had looked amazing on paper, to the outside world. And it was always like, oh, why did you end that? Why did you break up with them? And I never viewed it as breaking up with them. I really viewed it as breaking up with a version of me that was required to survive or stay in that relationship.
Mhm.
Um, because we're all on our own individual journeys and our paths cross and we try to, walk a journey together. And sometimes you're really forcing it. Um, Even if there's nothing that I would describe as toxic or nothing that I would describe as unhealthy. It was just more like, okay, this is where we were. And very often, and not just with relationships, with life in general, we stick to a script that was given to us or a script that was subtly we were exposed to through media, through culture, religion, different ideologies. And you start to realize very quickly that these scripts served a purpose, but they don't really serve us now. And I think for me, that was definitely one of those things where your eyes open and you can't, as you said, you can't unsee the things that you see. And some of the most scariest decisions I had to make, but it was completely necessary. Otherwise, I would have just crumbled.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it sounds like a real journey that you went through. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you came out the other side, and I think it's a journey that a lot of people should take. Which is what leads me sort of to wonder. obviously the core of the book is about love and to be love and to be loved. So what do you think is holding people back from love?
Um, I think the first thing is this idea that you have to be or do something for love. Love isn't something you have to earn. Love isn't something that you have to be enough for. Love isn't something that you have to qualify for. I think very often, trying to be positive, we say, you're enough, you're worthy. And it's like, no, there is no enoughness, there is no worthiness. These aren't measurements that apply to a human being. You can have enough gas in your car, you can have enough money in your bank account. You can't be enough of a person. And this idea of earning and qualifying for love, I think, is the really big idea that's really been messing us up. Because the truth is, we're all, we think love is confusing, but it's not. It's extremely simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. And when we think about our relationships that are non-romantic, love stays simple. You don't, you hold a nephew or a niece for the first time, you're filled with love. They didn't do anything to earn it. There's no qualification there. Then they can throw up on you and you'll still love them. So there's no right or wrong when it comes to this stuff because the love is always there. It's really about what we're doing to allow ourselves to access that love. The analogy I like to use is love is the breeze and our job is to open our sails. And that's
I like that.
so instead of saying I have to find love, I don't deserve love. These don't apply. You don't find a breeze. You don't deserve a breeze. You open your sail to access the breeze and catch it. And you want to create pathways of love. Like, if I want to deepen my love with you, we create a pathway for that love to flow. We don't find love or create love. And that pathway is built on vulnerability. It's not built on me and you going on a date and me asking you your favorite color and your favorite movie. It's built on me letting you see the real me at the fear of being judged and you doing vice versa. And as we do that, and as we are more vulnerable with each other, a pathway, starts to form. And then we have a conflict and we start throwing rubble and obstructions on that pathway. And then that blocks the flow of love. That applies to you and me, but that also applies to me and me. I have to be more vulnerable with myself. I have to be more intimate with myself for me to access, the love that exists within me. And I think that's the really big idea that we have to understand here. I think where it gets confusing is this world of romance and dating. Romance and dating, there's a lot of enoughness. There's a lot of worthiness. There's a lot of qualifying, but none of it is love. If I want to earn a second date with you, I have to earn it. But that's not earning your love. That's just earning more of your attention. And we have to understand attention, affection, admiration, power, control, success, obsession. These aren't love. These are bootleg versions of love. These are fast food versions of love. These are the games that we play before, but we all want the exact same thing, which is to be sitting in our sweats with the other person watching TV with all our masks off.
Yeah.
That's the love that we're working towards, but we're doing all this, this song and dance, putting on all these masks, wearing, putting our best foot forward, having our best stories, acting like something that we're not, in hopes that one day we can let it all go and be accepted for as we are. If we skip all that and just get to that first step, we'll be in a significantly better situation. And I think when we realize that, it's still fine. Like, yeah, you should date and you should try to win a person over on some capacity, but don't mix that up with love. Don't conflate it with love. And then we'll start to realize that most of the things that we're doing is really sabotaging ourselves from realizing the love that was always there.
And I think you brought up a really good point. A lot of it is that we quantify love, right? With
Yeah.
this idea of worth. So that's an interesting way to look at it. Like we're always, if we're quantifying it, we're expecting somebody else to kind of give us a score of their, like, what score did we land on their love card?
Yeah.
And that creates a power dynamic that doesn't really exist because love isn't a power dynamic. It's,
Yeah.
I remember for me, when I shifted out of that, that was like a game changer for me that like,
Mhm.
oh, this isn't a power play
Yeah.
because it felt like, yeah, like you're giving somebody the power to grade you on how lovable you are, which is just a mind-made concept. It's just not real.
Yeah.
And when I just realized like, oh, it doesn't matter to play these games, I just want I just want to like be myself. And if somebody receives that, great. And if they don't, it's just not the right person. And I think that's something we've also talked about on the podcast is um, it's not about right or wrong or good or bad. Uh, Love and dating and relationships is just kind of like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Hmm.
No piece is a bad piece. It's just one is a better fit.
Mm.
And so it's just like you're just trying to find that fit. Um, and that doesn't make any of the other pieces bad. They're all necessary in the big picture,
Yeah,
So
and to
I love
further
that.
that point, I think it's also important to realize that like the society that we live in is not on our team when it comes to this. So we're talking about that quantifying. Look, now we have social media, which is quantifying your likes,
Oh my
quantifying
gosh.
your followers, your comments. So now you're mixing up all that attention for love. So the way the world is operating, because society and the world has its own agenda, and its agenda isn't to make you happy. Its agenda is to keep you contributing to their economy. So yeah, and it's the same thing with the love stories you watch. All the couples that you see on TV, Ross and Rachel, Bobby, Whitney, whatever, they're not here to teach you what love is. They're here to entertain you because the healthiest relationships are in peace. And peace is not
Oh,
fun to watch on TV. Peace is
so boring.
it's boring. It's uneventful.
Yeah.
It's like watching the fireplace channel. And and I think it's a really important thing because we're signal with that. We're also signal with porn, this hypernormalness. And I think it's important to recognize that, to realize there's nothing wrong with us for believing these things because that's all we're being taught. And we're being taught by, a larger society that has its own agenda that doesn't prioritize what we need as individuals. And again, even before we were living in larger societies, we were living in smaller societies where the needs of the tribe, the needs of the village were more important than you. And if you chose yourself over the village, you would get ostracized and probably die. So the rejection that we fear from society and other people is real. It's ingrained into us. It's in our software. We just have to realize that it's outdated software and you can't delete it. It's like there's software on your phone that the phone comes with. You can't delete the calculator off your iPhone. It's there. Your need to people please is there. Your need to feel like, FOMO is the most horrible feeling in the world. It's there. These are parts of our software. We just have to be aware that this stuff is irrelevant now. And you can't delete it. You just have to catch yourself when you do it.
And is that where age helps, they say? Do you find that as people get older, I mean, that they care less about these things?
I think as they get older, the stakes get less important. And I think they also have enough experience to see that it doesn't work. You start to realize that people pleasing doesn't work. It's like learning that of trying to avoid a conflict creates a conflict, right? So you start to realize that, oh, all these lessons that I was taught were taught to me by people who didn't know what they were talking about, and it doesn't work. So let me just do my own thing and I have the same success rate, not wanting, and I think it's also that realization that there's too many people to make everyone like you, and there's no value to everyone liking you anyways. And I think that's where the age comes in because it's just experiences. But I don't quantify age with wisdom. I quantify experience with wisdom. So if somebody's living a life and they're not having new experiences, it really doesn't matter. And it's the same thing for a relationship. I don't quantify the strength of a relationship in terms of time, because if you're simply just watching TV every day with your partner and you guys aren't being vulnerable and building a connection, then you're not growing. You don't even know who that person is. You just developed a routine and a comfort level with them. And when shit hits the fan, which it inevitably will, then the strength of your connection with that person will get tested.
It's so true. And, even going back to what you said, like we look at these relationships on camera as love, and true love really is much more peaceful. Not like any relationship is ever 100% peaceful, but that idea that it's not a war, and it's not drama. And I have been known to be in many relationships that were drama, that were not healthy,
Yeah.
that were toxic, that all those things in varying levels. And now I'm in a relationship that is healthy. And it's so funny because my dad the other day came up and he's used to me having drama in my life,
Yeah.
and I don't. And so he knows about my partner. And so he asked me the other day, he's like while he wasn't around, my partner wasn't around. So he's like, so everything okay? And I was like, yeah, everything's good. He's like, no, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, everything's fine. And he was just like, are you sure? Is he, you can tell me anything about him. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, there's nothing to say. Everything's good. But it was so funny to me that,
It's a
you
little
know,
too quiet.
yeah. It's like, because it's not, one, it's not entertaining. Two, when people are used to you being around drama or you being part of drama,
Yeah.
they're kind of expecting that from you. And it was just funny to me that my dad was essentially telling me, like, hey, do you want to come up with a safe word? Because,
Yeah.
but to me, it was a sign that like I've grown. And I don't know if you have found that, but in friendships also, people are addicted to the drama, right? So like we're always sometimes egging our friends on to, I've really tried not to do this, but it has definitely been done to me. We egg our friends on to make shitty decisions to continue that drama cycle because it's just more fun than having a friend who's not going through some shit.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch a TV show and everything's okay, then it's going to be like, well, this is boring. And I think it's that with life and also connecting it with, going back to ancient software, like we also have, you know, software around gossip, right? Like for a long time, the spreading of information was viewed as your value. You gained value from the information you had to spread, and that was a great way to spread useful information. But also 90% of the information is useless gossip. So we all have this little, we're all little gossiping aunties in our own different ways. And, we have our own little bars of what's toxic and what's not in terms of what we spread and who we talk to. And we all got friends that we just do some low level gossiping with. So I think it's recognizing that that's kind of how we're wired and that's why it happens. But also like even in this idea of like being addicted to chaos, like if you grew up in a house of chaos, then chaos is your nostalgia. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's no different than wanting to eat your favorite childhood food. It's, we don't pick what's good for us. We pick what's familiar, especially when we're exhausted and tired. And we live in a world that is making us exhausted every single day. So what ends up happening is, and this is the study I quote in the book, which is, out of 1,100 couples that have been together for over a decade, less than 8% of them have a story about a spark. They didn't have a spark when they met. And, the science that backs up the spark isn't a good thing. The spark is actually your fight or flight being triggered. So what's happening is when you feel the spark with somebody, that's actually a trigger that they're reminding you of previous trauma. Right. And then we get attracted to that because it's familiar. Like that guy has the same energy as my dad. You don't realize that, but it feels familiar and warm, not healthy, just familiar and warm. And again, we were raised by whoever raised us. We're not perfect human beings. And also we were observing them while we had a developing brain. Being 8 years old and watching your parents, your brain is still thinking in terms of black and white. You don't understand nuance. You don't understand context. You're not going to get there until your teens. You don't even have empathy at that point. And it's like you're understanding this and then you're starting to develop your personality and your preferences and your comfort level based on all of that. And then you never update that story. So then, you're in your 20s and someone feels like that, or a house sounds like that, or a place smells like that. You gravitate towards it, especially if you're just floating through life unconsciously, which again is something that we're encouraged to do in the world that we live in. So it's really important to understand that you feel, if you're looking for a spark, you're looking for the exact opposite of what you need. And there's a great book called Attached that talks about attachment styles. And one of my favorite lines in that book is, we're not arguing the existence of soulmates. We're just saying you probably passed on your soulmate because you thought they were boring.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the thing is really, because again, love is peace.
Yeah.
Love is not needing anything else. Love isn't getting everything you want. It's not needing everything else. And it's a feeling of peace. The same feeling when you hold a beautiful baby or when you hug your mom or your grandma. It's peace. So, so all this excitement and the roller coasters and he needs to be jealous of me, or, she needs to play hard to get. All of these things are signals that we were sent in other ways. And it goes back to the excitement and the fast food feeling of like, ooh, I feel validated. I feel like I'm in control. I feel like I'm powerful. I feel like I'm the only one. And none of this is love, and it's delicious, but it's not nutritious. And you do enough of it long enough, and it's going to end up eating you from the inside out.
I love that. It is not what it is delicious, but not nutritious.
Yeah.
I love that. So Humble, how do you attract love?
So again, you don't attract love. Love's already there.
Mm.
Again, you don't attract the breeze. You open your sails and the breeze is already there.
Mm-hmm.
So you realize that love is always is everywhere. And what you're doing is you don't say, I love you. You say, you show me where love is. That's a Peter Crone idea.
Mm.
So what you're doing is you're building these pathways to love. So what you have to do is prioritize building pathways to love. And that comes through vulnerability. That comes through authenticity. And that comes through intention and meaningfulness. So when people say, how do I attract love? That's why the book is called How to Be Loved, right? People wouldn't buy the book if I called it How to Be Loved. They're buying the book because it's called How to Be Loved, but the way to be loved is to be love. Be what you want to attract. Love isn't a transaction. So, love exists in service. Love exists in intimacy. Love exists in being your own best friend. Love exists in being your own nurturing parent. So when you go through these, your own personal journey, and you're like, oh my God, these are all the ways my parents messed me up. It's not keeping it there and now identifying yourself as a messed up person. It's being like, okay, well, now I'm an adult and I can fill in those gaps. I have a friend, he grew up on the streets. His mom had problems with addiction. He was homeless for like the first 10 years of his life. Now, things are good for him. As an adult in his 30s, he took himself to the candy store and took his inner child shopping and spent $20 on candy and chips.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had candy right now.
Yeah. And these are the things that as a child he never got. So he did it for himself instead of resenting his mom. He filling in the gaps for himself. So the important thing here is recognizing yourself as a source of love, because you can share all the love in the world and you'll never be depleted. When we don't recognize ourselves as a source of love, we look for it everywhere else. When you look for it everywhere else, you're already existing in a place of lack and you're not going to get it, and you're going to compromise who you are and your authenticity to do it. So even just realizing, so for example, for women, a very simple idea that needs to be understood is women cannot compete with women for a man. You cannot do it. To compete with another woman, the only way you can compete with another woman is to reduce your boundary. And by reducing your boundaries, you're already sabotaging yourself and reducing your own self-love. So you lose. You can win the guy's attention, but you lose the long term. So,
and what do you mean by that? Like with the boundary thing, what do you mean exactly? So, I agree with you. I'm just like, I'm a girl's girl. So I'm like, I would never compete with another girl. But how do you sort of view that?
So in the concept of like, so your boundaries are teaching people how you need to be treated, right? So in that concept, it's, you're not telling people who they need to be. You're setting a standard. So, if you start swearing and yelling at me, I'm not telling you to stop swearing and yelling at me. I can just say, if you continue to treat me like this, I'm going to leave. Continue. If you want to be like that, go ahead, but I'm going to leave. These are my boundaries. I love myself. I'm protecting myself from this situation. In the modern dating situation, men are the pursuers and women are the choosers, right? Everything that a man has to do to win a woman over in just the superficial dating world benefits him regardless. Like, what does he have to do? Get in shape, make a lot of money? Okay, even if he doesn't get a girl, getting in shape and making a lot of money is still good for him in his life, right? For women to compete is not getting in shape and making a lot of money. It's going to be reducing boundaries, trying to make a guy's life easier than the one with the woman he has. Reducing her boundaries doesn't improve her quality of life. Saying yes to when she should be saying no, because that's the only way she could probably take a guy from his current girl. Because, oh, my girl doesn't let me do this, or my girl stresses me over that. So then you go ahead and make yourself seem easier. So that reduction of your boundaries, that reduction of your standards will impact your ability to have love flow within you. And you're trading that love for something that's not love. You're trading it for attention. You're trading it for validation. Validation isn't love, right? And validation is what we have because validation is easier to get. It's fast food. It's cheaper. It's faster. It's quicker. It's cheaper, faster, and more delicious. Yeah.
Delicious, but not nutritious.
Yeah. Well, you eat enough fast food, see what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if real love is broccoli, the stuff is French fries.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. So it's recognizing these ideas and being like, okay, and the more self-aware anybody becomes, the smaller their pool of people they're compatible with becomes.
And that's something I'm always like trying to tell people is like, you're not supposed to match with like there's 7 billion of us. You can't have 7 billion matches. You can't have everybody love you. You have to just know in yourself that you are, like you said, maybe it's not even worthy, but that you exist regardless. And like, you're not trying to be with everyone. You're trying to find the person that is a fit for you. And that's it. And that pool is actually very small.
And let it be small, because
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is I was talking to a friend recently who said, this is a very smart individual. She said, by the end of this year, I'm going to have a baby. So the math doesn't work out. She's also single. So I was like, the math is not working out. And I said, okay, you set deadlines for stuff like this. Then you also have to set deadlines. I'm like, you're guaranteeing your child's going to be raised in a broken family, because you're rushing the baby daddy part, because you've given yourself this deadline. This, I'm not knocking the science of there being an age limit for women to have kids, but it's not as low as people think. A lot of this mid-30s science is actually very old.
I mean, the truth is you could be 25 and not be able to have a child, and
yeah,
you could be 40 and pop out too.
You know what? Let's reference Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, right? Married at 39, I believe, and she's got 4 kids.
Oh wow!
So do the math, right? And she married Jesse Isler, and Jesse Isler, I think she married him. He was like 46. So and he's got 4 kids, and he runs ultra marathons. He's in his 50s. So don't let these timelines make you compromise your standards, because we live in a society with a ridiculously high divorce rate and a ridiculously low marriage rate. So you can accomplish this, but what's going to happen 10 years from now? So if you compromise yourself because you're afraid of being alone, 10 years from now, you'll be alone anyways. Plus, you'll be connected to somebody you don't want because you have to co-parent the child. And again, we do not live in a society that is making this easy. Mm-hmm. I think this is very important to understand. The world that we live in, the priorities of this massive 300 million person village is to feed the economy. I just think it's really important to say this. Everything that is done is for this economy. They want you to have kids, so you buy a bunch of dumb shit for your kids. They want you to get married, not so you can have a partner, so you can spend a bunch of money on your wedding. You know what I mean? This is what has naturally occurred. I'm not going to say there's just a bunch of dudes at the top rubbing their hands together evil. There's just an economy. We live in a world where corporations matter and they need to make profit, and industries are invented based off this stuff. So everything you watch on TV isn't teaching you how to live. It's entertaining you. And then you start to conflate that with reality. Like you grow up on Disney films. Disney films don't even do it anymore. New Disney films don't even have this unhealthy dynamic, princess in the castle, guy kisses her without consent, all of this stuff. It's not even there anymore. Yeah. But we grew up on that, and then that decides what we want. We want a fairy tale wedding. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're in love with the wedding more than the marriage. We have to recognize this isn't there. Plus the amount of hours that we work, plus the amount of debt that we're in, plus all of that. Like, we are living in a super stressful world. It's not making it easy to be in a monogamous relationship. It's not making it easy to be in a healthy relationship. It's not making it easy to eat healthy food. It's not making it easy to get exercise. This world isn't designed for any of that. This world is designed for you to spend all your time either making or spending money. And it's just really important to understand. So when you want to do this stuff, you have to do it with intention. Anything that you want to accomplish in life, I think in 2023 has to be done with like an intense level of intention. You want to lose 10 pounds? It's got to literally be, your sole goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You want to start a business. You want to, fix an injured knee, whatever you want to do. You have to do with a deep level of intention. You want to learn how to cook, anything, because there's so many things stealing our attention right now. So, and I think it's really important. If we pay attention to where the world's headed, people are realizing how hard that is. And now we have all these alternative love lifestyles coming out, whether it's non-monogamy and all these other things, because it's just getting super, super hard. And we just keep thinking we can have what our parents and our grandparents had, but grandpa didn't have Instagram girls to look at.
Yeah.
Grandma wasn't texting him all day and then, not getting a response back in time or what have you, and overthinking a text. They saw each other for 3 hours a day, ate dinner, and then, went back to work or did whatever they did. It's a different time. And these ideas were invented at a different time. Marriage, was started from small villages. Romantic marriage is a new concept. Marrying someone that you're actually romantically interested in, it's like a 300-year idea. This isn't what it was.
Yeah, there's so many, I love that there are so many different relationship formulas now, and ways people feel like they're being authentic to themselves. I always just reiterate, and kind of what you keep saying is finding out the right what truly is driving you. Is it just like, hey, I'm being non-monogamous because it's being driven by, I came from a broken home and I just know that monogamy isn't a real thing. And so that, or is it truly like, I truly have love for multiple people. And I'm truly being driven by that intention. It is tough in this world because I think people just want things to go their way. And sometimes we're coming up with formulas that actually add more drama to people's lives. I mean, we've had tons of people, and I fully support ethical non-monogamy and all of that. But we've had people come on the show who practice that and have always said that their lives are full of drama. And I'm like, why do you do it then? So I do think, and I love the point of like really going to the core of what is driving you.
Yeah.
I just really think that that's a key element to awareness, not just going against the grain, but doing it because you truly have thought about it and done some introspection and figured out what's driving you.
Yeah, and just recognizing that they're really, I like using the analogy of fitness, and it's like, if you want to lose weight, it's simple. You consume less calories than you burn. Simple doesn't mean easy, right? Now, we live in a society where it's very difficult to consume less calories than we burn. Most of us sit when we work, not a lot of options for exercise, a lot of processed food. So it's more challenging. It was a lot easier 100 years ago to consume less calories than you burn. Okay. So just have some grace there. And then because of that, we've created alternatives. We've created liposuction. We've created filters. We've created all these different things. So it's not about judging that these alternatives exist. It's recognizing that it gets harder. Some people can still do it. Some people go overboard and do keto and all this type of stuff temporarily, and then they gain the weight back or whatever. But it's possible to do. I view the same thing as with monogamy. There's a beauty to being in a monogamous swan relationship. I use the term swan because, swans mate for life. But I'm talking about that deep monogamy where they've done studies and they show these old couples, and there's actually scientific support that when you're in a deep monogamous relationship, it actually makes other people less attractive, actually makes them less attractive. And you can actually get that honeymoon feeling seeing your partner even after 10 years. There's a depth there. That's not monogamy. That's swan monogamy. That's doing the work. Do I believe that could happen in New York City? I don't think so. I think two people living in the middle of nowhere. So while they're forming their connection, don't have outside distractions. Maybe they don't even have internet. I think they're like, that's their likelihood is there. So that's the deep, it's simple, but it's hard, So now what we have is with a lot of this ethical non-monogamy, I view that as the liposuction, the filters, all of that. These are alternatives because it's just hard. The first piece of advice I got in New York is the best way to date in New York is to have 8 girlfriends, and it's like this kind of concept, like everybody's busy. Everybody has prioritized their career or just the idea of making enough money to pay their rent and keep their lips above water, that they're going to work hard, then they're going to play hard, and you're going to get them one Friday a month or whatever. So now everybody's seeing everybody, and it's a whole different thing. And there's a beauty to that in the concept of it's not a societal rule. It seems like a natural progression of what a place that has 11 million people would do, And so it's more like, okay, if you want to go back to the old school stuff, go somewhere that feels old school. Go to a smaller town. Go to a place that has 10,000 people, and your chances of a wandering eye won't be there. Your chances of daily stress impacting your relationship won't be there. It'll be a completely different situation. But I think there just has to be a recognition that like these ideas were made by people who never could have conceived what Wi-Fi is, what Instagram is, what dopamine addiction is, what hyper anxiety is. They didn't realize this world, and we're trying to honor these ideas that they came up with.
Do you think that there is room, like, so I lived in New York, and I know I used to tell everybody all the time, like, monogamy is not a thing in New York. It's just not, it's not a thing. But it's also a culture of people who are so invested in work.
Yeah.
I was also that person. Um, and there isn't a lot of self awareness. There are a lot of people who do therapy, but that still doesn't mean you're aware. A lot of people go to therapy just to vent out to somebody that, hey, this is my problem, but they don't actually do the homework
Mhm.
and the things it takes to enlist change.
Yeah.
Because I can say, as somebody who was a hard commitment phobe, who really openly, I fucked a lot of people. I did my fun. I had my time in New York. I was wilding out all the time. It was great. I had the best time, but I was not fulfilled. And I knew that deep inside, but I was just like, this is still fun. And I just didn't, I honestly just didn't care. And
Hmm.
after a point, there came a point where I was like, oh fuck, I just feel unfulfilled. It wasn't even like I feel empty.
Yeah.
It's not one of those like I feel dead inside. I
Yeah.
just was like, oh shit, this actually isn't enough anymore. I was like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had to go, then therapy took like a different turn for me where I really started doing the work,
Yeah.
which got me to face a lot of negative emotions, like really figuring out what was driving me, answering a lot of things I didn't want to answer
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Um, like, was I addicted to chaos? Who's the only constant in my life? It was me. Doing all of that. And then I can say, like, my attachment style definitely changed. We've actually had a therapist on who did attachment, and she's been on multiple times. And I
Yeah.
can say, as a person, like, I have grown a lot. Not perfect, not there,
Yeah.
um, but much improved to a point that all of those other things that I used to partake in, I don't feel like I'm missing out anymore.
Yeah.
Because I did it. I had my fun. I did my thing. But like now, I was like, oh, I actually want something more.
Yeah.
And so I do think that was my long-winded way of saying I do think it is possible in New York, but it requires people. I think it's possible anywhere in the world. And I
It's
think the
possible anywhere.
opposite is
Yeah.
also possible. You can be in buckfuck nowhere with 10,000 people and be completely unaware and choose to live a shitty life
Yeah.
that treats people like shit. You're going to do that.
Yeah.
But you can also choose in all the noise to go like, I can see the noise and not be the noise.
Yeah. Completely. And,
And
and I think that key word is intention, right?
yes,
So I think, as I said, like the New York's not going to make it easy to be
yes,
in
that's
a
the thing.
monogamous swan relationship, you know, versus being in bumfuck Idaho, right? Or middle of Montana where it's just you and your partner. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's in that concept, it's not going to make it easy. But if you're intentional, you're like, this is what matters. And I think that's the big thing right now. Is like, anybody out there, if what you're looking for, be very intentional for it. I think, a big conversation I have with my friends out here is they want a partner, but they're also in the meantime, they're okay having fun. And the question is you're having fun sabotaging the partner? Should it
Yeah.
should you be like saying no to everybody who is not a compatible long-term match and holding out for someone who is compatible, versus simply being like, no, no, okay, well, she ain't the one, but she's here right now. And then I'm gonna have some fun with her and create a bunch of chaos with her until my soulmate just magically arrives. And we just have to recognize like the relationships we build are more important than the relationships we have. And that requires intention. And anything you build requires a lot of unsexy repetition, practice, uncomfortable conversations, and all of that. And it's got to be extremely intentional. It's not diamond rings, it's not trips to Paris, it's not all these gestures of romance once a month to make up for the other 28 days that are shit. And so I think from that standpoint, it's the intentionality of it. And again, we've all, we outside of relationships again, and I like using analogies outside the relationships just to show that this is normal human behavior. Like we all will go out for food that we know is going to make us feel like trash a few hours later. And sometimes we kind of budget for it. We're like, all right, cool. I really want this food. Tomorrow's going to suck. Or I'm going to go out and drink my ass off. Tomorrow's going to suck, but I'm going to take work off and I'm going to have a quiet day and close my blinds. And I am owning the consequences of these actions. And I think, when you were enjoying your non-monogamy, you were owning the consequences of the actions. So you got to a point where, like, all right, I think I'm done with this. Now it's time to make a decision that I think eat a little bit healthier, choose nutritious over delicious, choose long-term gratification over short-term gratification. And good things happen with that, But again, as I said, like that I guess the way I look at it is like if you're on a diet, you don't live in a candy store, like the diet starts in the grocery store and what's in your kitchen. And I think I look at it from the same way with this, where it's like if you really want to have that, you need to optimize your choices, your life, and your environment to have it.
That's so well put. And I want to ask you is like sort of a last question as we wrap out this episode. Do you think we are attached to the idea of who we are or who we were and don't want to change because of that? And I'll give you an example. Again, as the person who used to be the hardcore commitment phobe, I kind of started attaching myself to that personality. Like I was the fun person everybody wanted stories from, and I was funny, and that made me kind of entertaining to people. And I kind of got attached to that label of like, oh, Tasha's a commitment phobe. She's never, tell us a crazy story you got this week. And when I came out of that, I had to very consciously go, okay, I'm going to be the boring one now. I'm not going to have a story for people to tell people, but I won't have that kind of dramatic story, but I will have other positive stories to tell people that will hopefully uplift and motivate in a different way. But even when I do this podcast, like it was like a big thing from, growing myself through the years of doing this is at some point you're like, well, am I just boring because I'm trying to get my shit together now? So do you think people are kind of attached to the idea of who they are and they just don't want to change because that just is more fun?
I mean, I think identities can be comfort zones and reputations can be prisons, right? And there's a Charles Cooley quote, which Jay Shetty always says to me is his favorite quote. And it's a brilliant quote. And I'm going to say it twice because it's simple, but not simple. It's, I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am.
Okay, one more time.
I am not who you think I am.
Mm-hmm.
I am who I think you think I am.
Oh, it's like a very people-pleasing quote. Like, is that? It feels like.
Well, it's identifying.
You think I am? Yeah.
I am who I think you think I am.
I am who you think I am. Oh, wow. Okay,
so like, let's say, for example, I walk down the street and I see you. And I'm like, oh, look, there's an attractive girl. But she'd never go for a guy like me. So I think that you think, that because I'm projecting onto you what you think about me.
Right.
Not knowing anything, and or I'm trying to show up to a wedding not dressed up enough. Now I think everybody thinks I'm a bum.
Even though nobody's thinking about you like that, but you have projected this idea that
exactly. So even when it comes to these identities, and sometimes it's based off saying. So, for me, one of the big ones was somebody had described me in a room full of people that I admire as like, oh, this guy, nothing ever bothers him. He's so even, he's so emotionally like stable. So then I created that prison for myself. I'm like, well, I can never let anything bother me. I can't be uncool and get offended. I can't be uncool and get hurt and have emotions. And all that did was make shit bottle up until I had a breakdown, you know? So it's that idea that, we fear people's criticisms. We got to watch out for their compliments. Because if their compliments aren't us, that's just as dangerous, and it's like if I say, you're always put together, or you're always on time, or you're always organized. Like you're going to try to live up to that. And I think so when we talk about this idea, like with these identities, it's like, yeah, my social circle looks to me as the person who has the cool stories and interesting stories. And, I, there's a mentor of mine who's, an older married man. And just coincidentally, especially with the pandemic and the gaps, when I saw him at events and I brought a plus one, it would be a different female. And, and it was in LA, and LA has no shortage of, symmetrically faced genetic lottery individuals. So I was showing up with people I enjoyed being around, but they also very easily could serve as arm candy. And then he made a comment like, man, I always look forward to seeing who you're bringing. Just, a little guy comment, just a little, but that's enough to get in my head. Like, oh my God, like every time I go, I need to, even if it's not even if they're not even romantically linked with me, I just need to have a good looking person beside me because he said that, and I know he doesn't actually care that much. If I show up alone or if I show up with my mom, like he's not going to care. He just made a comment, but we internalize these things because for tens of thousands of years, that's the only way we understood how to live in our village. We had to pick up cues and we had to stay on everyone's good side because that was the only way we would be accepted into the village. But we don't live in villages anymore. You live in a city of 10 million people and the people in your neighborhood don't like you. You can move 3 blocks away and never see them again. And it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But that
or just close your door and just don't talk to your neighbors.
Just close your door. Just turn off the comments. Just do all of these different things. This fear of rejection is such an interesting thing. And the truth of it is, especially as somebody who's been a public figure with a big following for a long time, the only reason I'm not impacted by mean comments on the internet is because I'm not impacted by the nice comments. You're just not allowed to be impacted by the comments. You don't get to choose to enjoy the nice ones and not be impacted. Either comments impact or they don't. So I think when it comes to these identities that we create, it's just that. And we don't know what people see when they see us. We don't know. We honestly don't know. And it's a really, having a conversation now, living, I just finished home hunting, but I'm not getting my keys to the new place for another month. So I'm crashing with a friend in Brooklyn who's also temporarily here while his home is under renovation. And he made a comment about the women here seeming more down to earth in Brooklyn versus the women in Manhattan. Like easier, they seem easier to approach. And I'm like, is that just because they seem dressed, they just seem dressed more relaxed? Does that really mean anything? Like, is it really that a woman who wears a $1,000 dress is less approachable than a girl who wears thrift store clothes? Like, is it really, and I think for me, the experiences I've had, like, there's no difference. We don't know what people see and we don't know what they're experiencing. We don't know who they are. We're projecting onto them. They're projecting onto us. All of us are just insecure little messes. And all we got to do is just say hi and see what happens. And, and I have guy friends who are pretentious, bougie, judgmental individuals, and they're still not horrible people to be around. They might tease me for my fake $5 sunglasses because I'm not responsible enough to own nice ones. And they'll be like, oh, where'd you get those from? I'm like, I got them on the street. Yeah, it shows. Like, don't make little comments like that. Yeah. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
of course not.
Yeah. Now, I know that pretentious level exists, but that doesn't mean it's everybody.
Yeah. I mean, also, yeah, it's I remember in high school, I still have this. People are surprised I'm an introvert. So in crowds, I'm not like looking to be the center of attention or anything like that. So in high school, we used to have this big foyer, and I used to feel a lot of anxiety walking when, in between classes. Everybody would kind of be hanging out in the foyer. I had a lot of anxiety about walking through all those people, especially if I was alone. So I had this thing where I would pick a spot across the hall and sing a song in my head.
Mm.
And so that was how but I didn't realize, like, my face was just kind of, maybe it was like RBF. And I didn't realize, because I was just singing a song in my head to get myself through the walking through the crowd. And so many people used to tell me, like, later, honestly, like senior, when I was in 12th grade or grade 12, they were telling me, you're kind of like icy. And somebody said that I'm like a bitch, and somebody said the word pretentious. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And the people who know me, they were like, if you talk to you, we know you're not, but you give off that vibe. And I was like, oh my God, why? And they were like, because you don't talk when you're walking by anybody. I'm like, I have anxiety. I'm just
Yeah.
looking at a
Yeah.
point and trying to get through the moment. I don't even know that anybody's looking at me looking for acknowledgement.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get through the moment.
And just a simple, it's also like, context and everything. Like I think about my dad. Like my dad, he's a grandpa, right? And he's got a good banter with my nieces and nephews when they were kids. And when they were very young and they came in the house, my dad would be like, get out of my house. And then they would be like, get out of my house. And it would just be this cute little banter that they had. And then for some reason, once some little kid that wasn't related to us said something or came near, um, it was a young guy. And then he asked me for a photo. He recognized me. And then my dad made a joke like, that's going to be $10. This kid doesn't know my dad. So my dad just looked like a scary old man to him. And he got scared and he left.
Oh,
Yeah. It was like that. Like, that's
yeah.
not your grandkid. He's not picking up on your sarcasm because
Yeah.
you're just a scary old man to him. You don't know who you are. And I always think that's important. No one's smiling default. Everyone has a resting bitch face. And it's like, it's a really interesting thing. And, I've gotten that too. Where it's like, oh, you seem very unapproachable. You seem very like, serious. I was like, or I'm just spaced out in my own world, not thinking, and I'm thinking about stuff. I won't be smiling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Like
know there's this weird thing of everybody just wants you to be smiling all the time, especially, like, I'm sure you get that. I get that all the time.
that'd be creepy.
People.
If you just saw people smiling and I get it to an extent.
I don't.
I think, well, I mean, in the context of like, I think with guys, if two guys make eye contact, it's just a nod, it's an acknowledgement. I think that if you make eye contact, I think for me, having a puppy has been very disarming for people. So they see my puppy, she's just right in the back right here.
Oh, cutie.
She's back there. Yeah. But like, it's been a disarming element of that, because then it'll give them an opportunity to look at me and give me time to smile. Things kind of warm up on that. But it's just context as well. And I think that is a really, and a lot of people, have that where people think I'm unapproachable. People think I'm a bitch. And, you're a teddy bear on the inside, but you may look, but also like if women want to look attractive, sometimes what they do is they make themselves look dangerous. Like you go for Angelina Jolie and you try to look very dangerous with the eyes, dangerous with everything. So that also gives it that idea. And telling, and I used to tell in my last relationship, telling my ex, like, a compliment used to be like, wow, like you look unapproachable. You know what I mean? Like you look so hot, I'd be too scared to talk to you. And it's still a compliment. It's an interesting thing that it tells us our story more than anybody else's. And, if we all take that first step to let our guards down and create that level of connection with somebody, even if it's just having a conversation about the weather or a conversation about something or complimenting their shoes or whatever, like you'll see the guards come down, or like, hey, I love that your earrings match your shoes. And someone feels seen all of a sudden and you'll see them warm up. And I think if we do that a little bit more, and again, we live in a society that encourages our isolation. Yeah. Because people will gain more money and power when we're divided.
Do you know who's so good at that? Side note, Russell Peters. He remembers things about everybody. So if he meets you, he'll always be like, hey, how's your dad doing from that
Yeah.
time that blah blah blah, and you're like, what, did I tell you about that? And but I've seen him do that with strangers, like, or some person he hasn't seen in a really long time. He'll be like, oh, how's that car that you were driving, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I literally can't remember when I met people or anything. And he makes people feel so special and seen. And I've always seen the reaction of people go like, wow, like, you know me?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
remember me? Like, it's just like a crazy thing that, like, we still want
It actually makes, and I feel like it makes
validation.
everybody else in the room feel a little bit less. I had done a shoot. I was helping Lily do a shoot with The Rock,
Wow.
and
Rock
they
is
were,
like my dream. Not
yeah,
in like a crush way, like I'm a big wrestling fan, so
yeah,
he's
he's just a magical dude. And I was tasked with, I was directing. So I was tasked with giving him, like, he shows up and you tell him what to do. He doesn't know what's happening until he shows up.
yeah.
You tell him what to do. So I was tasked with telling him what to do. And at one point, people are changing lenses, doing whatever. And he goes, "Oh, Humble, you just had a birthday a couple of days ago, right? Happy belated birthday." And like, not only was I shocked and seen, everybody in the room was shocked and saw, and it was just this whole like, oh, she's more wonderful than we just thought. Like, he just saw you. He knew it was your birth. And I'm sure somebody just told him before he walked in the room, like, here's some stats and here on everything else. But it's these little gestures make the difference. And he's wonderful enough for even having someone do that, or
Yes.
maybe he was looking at my Instagram right before he walked
Yeah,
in the
that's
room or
probably what it
whatever it could be.
was.
Yeah. But it was this beauty of people want to be seen. And
Yeah.
I think this is important when we talk about this idea of love languages. That's the only love language, to
Mhm.
be seen. You can be seen through gifts. You can be seen through touch. I don't know the other ones, but instead of us falling through this pop culture idea that we have unique ways of being loved, no, it's being seen. You
Mhm.
know, and let's not join teams and start writing other people off because their idea of being seen might be something else. I think anybody can be seen in any capacity. I was talking to a girl recently, and she's like, "I don't like getting gifts." And I was like, well, what if I got you a locket with a picture of your grandmother who passed away on it? Oh, well, I'd like that gift. I'm like, yeah, because you feel seen. Because I've been listening to your stories about your grandmother. That makes you feel seen. You don't want flowers and diamonds, you know? And I think it's more of that idea of seeing somebody. And the way to see somebody and to be seen is to be vulnerable so people can see you, you know? And we just fear all this judgment. So we build all these walls and then we're all just isolated and the love can't flow between us.
It's so true. I mean, you are so articulate, and I love that. And you have so many gems in your book that we couldn't even get to because there are just literally so many. So, guys, definitely get How to Be Loved. We will also have it in the show notes of this episode. Humble, thanks so much for being on this episode with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're not totally done. So, we're going to do a quick little thing called 6 questions. We did it with you before, but so much time has passed. So, maybe your answers have changed because you are a different person today than you were then. So, Humble, are you ready for your 6 questions? It's like our rapid fire.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. What is the first thing you notice about a potential partner?
Your face.
Nice. What is one deal breaker?
Not going to therapy.
Ooh, good one. Yes. What turns you on? This one's taking a minute.
I'm just because I had a moment recently where somebody was saying something totally non-sexual that totally turned me on. I'm just trying to figure out what it was. Being obsessed with something. So
I love,
somebody who knows their obsession.
I love that.
Hearing somebody obsess over something, whatever it is like I love that they've discovered what they're obsessed about in their life and they're expressing it.
Shows passion, maybe.
Yeah.
What are one of your strengths and one of your weaknesses in relationships?
I'm an effective communicator. Um, I unnecessarily debate everything, and my patience for um, non-male oriented communication isn't high enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, I realized a woman who I defined as an effective communicator, um, she wasn't an effective communicator. She was someone who figured out how to effectively communicate in a man's world. And women communicate differently, and it's not their job to figure out how to communicate with a man. It's equal. I should learn how to communicate with them as well. So I've been doing a lot of learning therapy and watching female centric films to learn that the big thing I learned is women provide the evidence, then the thesis, where guys just want to hear the thesis.
Also a good point. What is love?
I love the Naval Ravikant definition. Love is what remains when all other emotions cease to exist.
Ooh, nice. We haven't heard that one here. Besides I love you, what 3 words would you want your partner to tell you?
I see you.
Good one. Good one. Humble. Thank you so much. How can everyone find you and the book and all the fun stuff?
Yeah, you can. The book is available everywhere: Amazon, Indigo in Canada, Barnes and Noble in America, Waterstones in the UK. Everywhere books are sold, you should find it. If you can't find it, humblethepoet.com/love. And you can find me at Humble the Poet everywhere.
Guys, please follow him. He's so great. He's great for your soul. And this book is wonderful. So please check it out. We're also on social media. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm at Natasha Chandel on Instagram and Facebook, Natasha.Chandel on TikTok. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. If you like something you heard, screenshot the episode and tag us on social media. Finally, I know it seems tough out there, but just try. Till next time. I hope you guys enjoyed that video and check out our next one. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to this channel for more amazing dating, love, and relationship advice from me and so many expert guests. Follow us on socials. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm Natasha Chandel, so you can find me too if you like. And join our newsletter on www.kindadating.com for lots of exclusives. See you soon.